Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Linegar. Let's make history today as we start the modern period, 1750 to 1900, and go over today some of the revolutions that developed during this time period. But let's get started with our daily punishment. My parents said I can't drink any coffee anymore, or they'll ground me. All right, let's start off with some generalizations for today. The world's going to be divided into a couple of major places. You have the West, which includes Western Europe, nations like Western Europe that have modernized, America, Canada, industrialized societies. They have strong militaries, they're very nationalistic, advanced in math and science. You have the wannabe nations, the nations that are trying to westernize, Japan. These nations include Japan, Russia, China, and the Ottoman Empire. The government will sponsor the economies, they'll borrow ideas from the West. And you have the other nations that are just going to be taken over directly and indirectly by the West, Africa and Asia. Only Latin America will be able to throw Europeans out politically. And now let's start off with some revolutions during this time. You have the American Revolution. We talked before about the American Revolution. It was caused by things like mercantilism, no taxation without representation. They were upset about some of the acts the British were doing after the French and Indian War, like the Tea Act, the Stamp Act. The Americans will sign the Declaration of Independence. They were influenced by things from the Enlightenment. The Articles of Confederation will not work, and they will create a U.S. Constitution. The French Revolution will not be as successful. It will be created in 1789 after the Estates General meet, and the French want to get rid of the three estates. They're going to sign the Tennis Court Oath. A National Assembly will be created. The French will create the Declarations of Rights of Man and Citizen. The beginning of the French Revolution is considered Bastille Day on July 14th, 1789. At first, France was a constitutional monarchy. You will then get the radical phase of the French Revolution, where the Jacobins are led by Maximilien Robespierre, called the Reign of Terror, where they start executing tens of thousands of quote unquote enemies of the revolution. You have the period next, led by the conservative phase under the Directory. Napoleon Bonaparte will do a coup d'etat in 1799. Then you'll have the authoritarian phase where he will rule France as an emperor. He will do the idea of enlightened absolutism. He will be an absolute monarch, but he will take different aspects of the Enlightenment, like freedom of religion, the Napoleonic Code, where he'll codify all French law. Under Napoleon, they will expand and conquer most of Western Europe. Eventually, after a series of alliances, the French finally will be defeated in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The Europeans will meet in Vienna in the Congress of Vienna, where they'll try to kind of restore conservatism. They'll redraw the boundaries of Europe and try to have it what it was like before Napoleon seized power. During this time, you're going to have ideologies being created, modern political ideologies. You have classical liberalism, classical conservatism. You're going to start to see radicalism develop, socialism, and communism. In Haiti, there's going to be a slave uprising against the French. Toussaint Louverture is going to lead it. Haiti will become the first former slave republic. It's going to scare a lot of Southerners who are afraid that their countries might revolt, and will inspire slaves, the Haitian Revolution. In Latin America, they will also have a rebellion. The Latin Americans will be influenced by things like the American Revolution, the French Revolution. They'll be influenced by the Enlightenment. There'll be social inequality in Latin America. The Peninsulares were the ones that controlled the government, and the Creoles wanted power. This is going to be a white-based conservative rebellion. Also, in Latin America, during this time, when Napoleon was in power, he conquered Spain and Portugal. So for throughout the 1810s and 1808 to 1814, the Latin American colonies got to govern themselves. So a lot of them didn't want to give up their self-government after the Spanish and Portuguese finally won. You will have different people that will lead the Latin American independence movement. In the northern part of South America, Simon Bolivar will help the northern part of South America become free, Gran Colombia. Father Miguel Hidalgo and Agustin de Iturbide will help free Mexico. Dom Pedro will be unique in that he was the Prince of Portugal, and his father will tell him just to stay in Brazil, and he'll become the first emperor of Brazil. And Jose de San Martin is going to lead independence in the southern part of South America in a region that is going to be known as Rio de Plata. Both Rio de Plata and Gran Colombia will not stay as super states. They will break up into smaller countries during this time. So this video really went over the big revolutions you should know: American, French, Latin American, Haitian, some generalizations, and some of the big political developments. We're also going to have the creation of some nation states and nationalism. Italy and Germany will become countries during this time, which is something else you should know about. All right, guys. Deuces. Deuces, deuces.